Ma'am, I can miss a meal, but you shouldn't have to, Malik Turner said softly, holding out the wrapped turkey sandwich as the cold Atlanta rain drummed against the steel beams of the downtown bus terminal. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered, casting pale reflections across the wet pavement, while the scent of diesel and damp concrete lingered in the evening air. Commuters hurried past, collars pulled high, and eyes fixed on their phones, careful not to notice the woman seated alone on the metal bench. Her gray coat was wrinkled, her hair tucked beneath a simple scarf, and her gloved hands trembled slightly from the chill. She looked like someone the world had forgotten. Malik hesitated for only a moment before stepping closer, the last dollar he owned already spent on the sandwich now resting in his open palm. He had planned to eat it after his shift at the loading dock interview that never happened, but hunger was easier to bear than the quiet guilt of walking away. The woman glanced up slowly, her eyes sharp despite the exhaustion shadowing them, studying him as if weighing something far greater than the offering in his hand. "You don't have to do this," she said, her voice composed yet gentle, carrying the cadence of someone accustomed to being heard. Malik gave a faint smile, rainwater dripping from the brim of his worn baseball cap. "I know," he replied. "But my mama raised me to believe nobody deserves to be hungry, especially on a night like this." Around them, the city moved without pause, heels clicking against tile, bus engines groaning, announcements echoing through the terminal. But for a brief moment, everything seemed to slow. The woman accepted the sandwich with quiet gratitude, her fingers brushing his as she did. "Thank you," she said, her gaze lingering on him with unexpected intensity. Malik shrugged lightly, as though the gesture were nothing extraordinary. "It's just a sandwich," he replied. "But sometimes that's enough." A security guard watched from a distance, suspicion etched across his face, while a pair of travelers whispered as they passed, casting sideways glances at Malik's scuffed boots and faded denim jacket. He was used to that look, the silent judgment, the assumptions that came with empty pockets and tired eyes, but he met it with the same steady dignity he carried everywhere. "What's your name?" the woman asked, unwrapping the sandwich with deliberate care. "Malik," he said. "Malik Turner." She nodded thoughtfully, committing it to memory. "I'll remember that," she said. The rain intensified, drumming louder against the roof, and Malik checked the cracked face of his watch. His last bus home would arrive in minutes, carrying him back to a small apartment where overdue bills waited on the kitchen table and his mother rested beneath a quilt worn thin by time. Still, he lingered, ensuring the woman had taken her first bite. When she did, her expression softened, as if warmth had returned to her from the inside out. "Take care of yourself, Malik Turner," she said quietly. He tipped his cap with a polite nod. "You too, ma'am." As he turned toward the departing bus, he didn't notice the sleek black SUV gliding silently to the curb just beyond the rain's veil, nor the suited driver stepping out with quiet urgency. He didn't see the way the woman straightened her posture, the exhaustion lifting from her shoulders as she finished the last bite. He only knew that he had given away his final meal and that, somehow, it felt like the right thing to do. Hours later, as the city lights shimmered across the skyline and the storm drifted into the distance, Malik had no idea that the simple act of kindness he offered beneath the humming fluorescent lights would soon turn his world upside down in ways he could never have imagined. The last bus rattled through the rain-soaked streets of Atlanta, its headlights slicing through the mist as Malik Turner sank into a cracked vinyl seat near the back, the hum of the engine vibrating softly beneath his worn boots while droplets traced slow paths down the fogged windows, blurring the glow of neon signs and street lamps into streaks of gold and silver. He exhaled quietly, rubbing his hands together for warmth, the absence of the sandwich in his pocket replaced by a strange sense of calm that hunger could not diminish. Outside, the city moved with indifferent rhythm, storefronts closing, traffic lights blinking from red to green, and pedestrians hurrying home beneath umbrellas, each wrapped in their own private world. Malik leaned his head against the cool glass and watched his reflection shimmer faintly, thinking of his mother waiting in their small apartment on Auburn Avenue, her soft voice always reminding him that kindness was the only currency that never lost its value. When the bus lurched to a halt, he stepped off onto the slick pavement, the scent of wet asphalt rising into the night air as thunder murmured faintly in the distance. The apartment building stood weathered but familiar, its brick walls darkened by years of rain, and a single flickering porch light greeted him like an old friend. Inside, the hallway smelled faintly of detergent and aging wood. He climbed the narrow staircase, each step creaking beneath his weight, until he reached the door at the end of the corridor. The faint glow of a lamp filtered through the curtain, and when he entered, he found his mother seated in her armchair, wrapped in a knitted shawl, her gentle smile warming the modest room more than the humming space heater ever could. "You are late, baby," she said softly, her southern accent tender with concern. Malik knelt beside her and kissed her cheek. "The buses were slow tonight, Mama," he replied, setting his damp cap on the table. "Did you eat?" she asked. He hesitated for only a second before answering with a reassuring smile. "Yes, ma'am. I did." She studied him knowingly but chose not to challenge the answer, instead reaching for his hand and squeezing it with quiet pride. "Your father always said a good heart will carry you further than a full pocket," she murmured. Malik nodded, her words settling into his spirit like a promise. Later that night, as rain tapped softly against the window, he spread his job applications across the small kitchen table, the ink slightly smudged from the damp air. Rejection letters lay among them, silent reminders of doors that had not yet opened, but he refused to let them define him. He straightened the papers carefully, determination shining in his tired eyes, and whispered a silent prayer for tomorrow. Across the city, far beyond the modest glow of his apartment, a sleek black SUV glided beneath the towering glass skyline. Inside, the woman from the bus terminal sat poised and composed, her weary disguise set aside as she watched the city lights reflect across the window like scattered stars. "Did you confirm his name?" she asked calmly. The driver nodded. "Yes, ma'am. Malik Turner." She repeated the name softly, as though committing it to memory. "A man who gives away his last meal deserves to be remembered," she said, her voice steady with quiet resolve. As the car disappeared into the night, Malik lay down on the narrow sofa in his living room, unaware that the simple act of compassion he offered beneath flickering lights had set unseen forces into motion. Outside, the storm began to fade, leaving behind a sky washed clean and shimmering with possibility, and somewhere between exhaustion and hope, Malik closed his eyes, never imagining that by sunrise, the course of his life would begin to change in ways he had never dared to dream. Morning sunlight filtered gently through the thin curtains of Malik Turner's modest apartment, painting warm streaks of gold across the worn wooden floor as the city of Atlanta stirred awake beyond the window. The rhythmic hum of passing traffic and the distant wail of a train horn drifted through the cool spring air, carrying with them the promise of a new day. Malik rose quietly from the narrow sofa, careful not to disturb his mother, and stretched his tired muscles before buttoning his cleanest shirt, its cuffs slightly frayed but neatly pressed. He paused at the small kitchen table, reviewing the stack of job applications he had prepared the night before, each page carefully aligned as if precision alone could unlock opportunity. The scent of freshly brewed coffee filled the room as his mother shuffled in, her gentle smile illuminating the modest space. "You are up early, baby," she said softly. Malik nodded, handing her a mug. "I have a good feeling about today, Mama," he replied. She studied his face with quiet pride. "Kindness has a way of finding its way back," she murmured. Her words lingered in his mind as he stepped out into the crisp morning, the sun glinting off Atlanta's skyline like polished glass. Meanwhile, across town, the towering headquarters of Whitmore Retail rose above the city, its mirrored exterior reflecting the blue Georgia sky. Inside a spacious corner office, Evelyn Whitmore stood before a floor-to-ceiling window, her tailored navy suit replacing the worn disguise from the night before. The transformation was striking, yet her expression remained contemplative. "Have you located him?" she asked calmly. Her assistant, a poised woman named Caroline Hughes, nodded while reviewing a digital tablet. "Yes, Ms. Whitmore. Malik Turner. 31 years old. Resides on Auburn Avenue. No criminal record. known for consistent temporary employment and community volunteer work. Evelyn's gaze softened slightly. And he gave away his last meal without hesitation, she said quietly. Caroline inclined her head. It appears so. Evelyn turned, her voice steady with resolve. Arrange a meeting. But make it discreet. I want no publicity. Back on the bustling streets, Malik approached a bus stop beneath a clear sky, the warmth of the rising sun brushing his face. He straightened his shoulders and rehearsed answers in his mind, determined to secure steady work for his family. Just as he reached into his pocket for bus fare, a sleek black sedan pulled up beside the curb. The tinted window lowered smoothly, revealing a sharply dressed driver. Mr. Turner? The man asked respectfully. Malik hesitated, surprised. Yes, sir, he replied cautiously. The driver stepped out and handed him a cream-colored envelope embossed with a silver seal. You are requested at the Whitmore retail headquarters this morning, he said. Malik blinked in disbelief, glancing down at the elegant lettering bearing his name. There must be some mistake, he murmured. The driver shook his head politely. No mistake, sir. Transportation has been arranged for you. Malik's heart pounded as he looked once more at the envelope, the paper smooth beneath his fingertips. Whitmore Retail was a name known throughout the nation, a symbol of success and influence. He thought of his mother's words and drew a steady breath. All right, he said quietly. As he stepped into the vehicle, the door closing with a soft click, the city outside seemed to blur into motion. Across town, Evelyn Whitmore watched from her office window as the sedan entered the circular driveway below. A faint smile touched her lips. Let us see, she whispered, her voice calm yet filled with purpose. How far a single act of kindness can reach. Unaware of the extraordinary path unfolding before him, Malik gazed out at the gleaming skyline, the sunlight dancing across the glass towers, and felt a quiet sense of destiny rising within his heart as the car carried him toward a future he had never imagined. The sleek black sedan glided smoothly through the heart of downtown Atlanta, its polished surface reflecting the morning sunlight as towering glass buildings rose like monuments of ambition against the clear blue sky. Malik Turner sat quietly in the back seat, his hands folded neatly in his lap, the cream-colored envelope resting gently between his fingers as he tried to steady the rhythm of his breathing. Each passing block felt like a step deeper into a world far removed from his own, where marble lobbies and mirrored facades replaced the cracked sidewalks he knew so well. When the car finally turned into the circular driveway of Whitmore Retail headquarters, Malik's eyes widened at the sight of the towering structure before him. The building shimmered with quiet authority, its entrance framed by pristine columns and revolving glass doors that spun effortlessly as sharply dressed professionals moved in and out with purposeful strides. The driver opened the door with respectful precision. We have arrived, Mr. Turner, he said. Malik nodded, stepping onto the smooth pavement as sunlight warmed his face. He straightened his shoulders, adjusting the collar of his neatly pressed shirt, and whispered a quiet prayer beneath his breath before walking toward the entrance. Inside, the lobby gleamed with polished marble floors and a chandelier that sparkled like captured starlight. The air carried the faint scent of fresh lilies and brewed coffee, and the soft hum of conversation echoed through the expansive space. A receptionist looked up with a welcoming smile. Good morning. How may I assist you? She asked politely. Malik handed her the envelope. My name is Malik Turner. I believe I have an appointment. Her expression shifted subtly as she read the embossed seal. Of course, Mr. Turner. Ms. Whitmore is expecting you. Moments later, an elevator whisked him upward in silent elegance, the city skyline unfolding beyond the glass walls like a painting of possibility. Malik's reflection stared back at him, steady yet uncertain, as the elevator chimed softly on the executive floor. The doors opened to a serene corridor lined with modern artwork and bathed in warm, natural light. Caroline Hughes greeted him with a courteous smile. Mr. Turner, welcome. Ms. Whitmore will see you now. Malik followed her into a spacious corner office where sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating a room defined by quiet sophistication. Behind a polished mahogany desk stood Evelyn Whitmore, composed and dignified in a tailored navy suit. Her presence carried the calm authority of someone accustomed to shaping destinies with a single decision. Malik paused as recognition dawned slowly in his eyes. The woman before him was no stranger. She was the same person he had offered his last meal to beneath the flickering lights of the bus terminal. Evelyn met his gaze with a gentle, knowing smile. "Good morning, Mr. Turner," she said warmly. Malik's voice caught slightly as he found his words. "You were at the bus station," he said softly, astonishment flickering across his face. Evelyn inclined her head. "Yes. And you showed me kindness when you had every reason not to." Malik shifted modestly. "It was just a sandwich, ma'am." Her expression softened, yet her eyes shone with sincerity. "No, Mr. Turner. It was dignity. And that is far more valuable." She gestured toward a chair near her desk. "Please have a seat." As Malik settled into the chair, the sunlight framed him in a warm glow, highlighting the quiet strength etched into his features. Evelyn folded her hands gracefully. "I have spent my life building an empire," she said. "But yesterday, in a moment of uncertainty, a man with very little reminded me of what truly matters." Malik listened silently, his heart steady yet filled with awe. "Why did you help me?" she asked gently. He hesitated before answering with simple honesty. "Because no one should feel invisible, ma'am. Not if I can help it." Evelyn's eyes glistened faintly with understanding. She rose from her desk and walked toward the window, gazing out at the city below. "Mr. Turner," she said at last, her voice calm yet resolute, "your compassion has already changed more than you realize." She turned back to face him, the morning light illuminating her expression with quiet purpose. "And today, I intend to return that kindness in a way that will change your life forever." Malik Turner sat quietly in the leather chair as sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Evelyn Whitmore's office, casting golden reflections across the polished mahogany desk and the gleaming skyline of Atlanta beyond. The city stretched beneath them like a living tapestry of ambition and possibility, its glass towers shimmering in the midday light, yet Malik felt as though he stood at the threshold of an entirely different world. He folded his hands neatly in his lap, steadying his breath, as Evelyn regarded him with calm sincerity. Her presence was composed and dignified, but there was warmth in her gaze, a quiet acknowledgement of the simple kindness that had bridged the distance between their lives. "Mr. Turner," she began gently, her voice smooth and assured, "yesterday you reminded me of something I had nearly forgotten. In a world driven by profit and power, compassion is often treated as a weakness. Yet you proved it is, in fact, the greatest strength of all." Malik shifted slightly, humbled by her words. "I did what anyone should do, ma'am," he replied softly. "You were alone, and it did not feel right to walk away." Evelyn smiled faintly, her eyes reflecting both admiration and resolve. "Perhaps many should have done the same," she said. "But you did. And that is what makes all the difference." She stepped toward the window, gazing thoughtfully at the bustling city below before turning back to face him. "Whitmore Retail employs thousands across this nation. However, success without humanity is hollow. I have decided to launch a new initiative, one dedicated to uplifting communities that have long been overlooked." Malik listened intently, his brow furrowing with curiosity. Evelyn continued, her voice steady with purpose. "I intend to establish a foundation that will provide job training, educational scholarships, and essential support for families striving for stability. But such a mission requires more than funding. It requires authenticity. It requires someone who understands hardship not as a statistic, but as a lived experience." Malik's heart quickened as realization dawned. "Ma'am," he said hesitantly, "are you asking me to help you?" Evelyn met his gaze directly. "Yes, Mr. Turner. I would like you to serve as a community outreach coordinator for this initiative. Your insight, your integrity, and your compassion are precisely what this program needs." For a moment, the words hung in the air like a promise waiting to be believed. Malik stared at her, astonishment flickering across his face. I have never worked in an office like this, he admitted quietly. I do not have a college degree. I am not sure I am qualified. Evelyn's expression softened with understanding. Qualifications can be taught, she said gently. Character cannot. You have already demonstrated yours. She reached for a folder resting on her desk and handed it to him. Inside were documents outlining a full-time position, complete with comprehensive training, health benefits, and a salary that exceeded anything Malik had ever imagined. His fingers trembled slightly as he read the figures, the numbers almost unreal. This cannot be happening, he whispered. Evelyn smiled warmly. It is happening, Mr. Turner. Not as charity, but as an opportunity earned through your humanity. Malik swallowed, emotion rising in his chest as he thought of his mother and the burdens they had carried together. Thank you, Ms. Whitmore, he said, his voice steady yet filled with gratitude. I will not let you down. Evelyn inclined her head. I have no doubt you will succeed. Just then, a soft knock sounded at the door, and Caroline Hughes entered with a gentle smile. Ms. Whitmore, the documents are ready for signature, she announced. Malik signed the papers carefully, his name etched in ink with a sense of purpose he had never known before. As he set the pen down, sunlight illuminated the contract, symbolizing the dawn of a new chapter. Evelyn extended her hand. Welcome to Whitmore Retail, Mr. Turner. Malik rose and shook her hand firmly, his heart filled with quiet determination. Outside, the city shimmered beneath the bright Georgia sun, and for the first time, the future no longer felt distant or uncertain. It felt within reach, born from a single act of kindness offered beneath flickering lights on a rainy night. The warmth of the Georgia sun followed Malik Turner as he stepped out of Whitmore Retail headquarters, the signed documents carefully secured in his hand while the glass doors closed behind him with a soft whisper that sounded like the turning of a new page in his life. The Atlanta skyline gleamed above him, each tower reflecting the midday light like a promise waiting to be fulfilled, and for a moment he stood still on the polished steps, breathing in the crisp air as disbelief slowly gave way to gratitude. Only hours earlier he had worried about bus fare and overdue bills, yet now the future stretched before him with unexpected clarity. He carefully folded the employment contract and placed it inside his jacket, holding it close as though it were something sacred, then reached into his pocket for his phone. His fingers trembled slightly as he dialed the number he knew by heart. When his mother answered, her gentle voice carried warmth across the line. Malik, baby, is everything all right? She asked softly. He smiled, his eyes glistening beneath the sunlight. Yes, Mama, he replied, his voice steady with emotion. Everything is more than all right. I got the job. There was a pause, followed by a soft gasp filled with relief and joy. Thank you, Lord, she whispered. I knew your kindness would open a door for you. Malik chuckled gently. You always said a good heart would lead the way, he said. And you were right. As he ended the call, he felt a renewed sense of purpose settle within him, grounding him with quiet determination. Moments later, a company car escorted him back toward Auburn Avenue, the familiar neighborhoods unfolding outside the window as he watched children laughing on sidewalks and storefronts opening beneath striped awnings. When he arrived at his apartment building, the weathered bricks seemed less worn, the narrow stairwell less daunting, as though hope had softened the edges of every hardship he once carried. He climbed the steps two at a time and opened the door to find his mother waiting with a hopeful smile. The sunlight streaming through the curtains illuminated her face as he handed her the contract. She adjusted her glasses and read each line slowly, her eyes widening with wonder. Full benefits, she murmured. Training, health care, and a salary. Oh, Malik. Her voice trembled with pride as she placed a gentle hand on his cheek. Your father would be so proud of the man you have become. Malik embraced her, holding her carefully as though anchoring himself in the moment. We are going to be all right now, Mama, he whispered. Better than all right. That evening, he ironed his best shirt with meticulous care, the soft hiss of steam filling the modest apartment as the golden glow of sunset painted the walls in warm hues. He polished his shoes until they shone, determined to honor the opportunity he had been given. Meanwhile, high above the city, Evelyn Whitmore stood once more by the window of her office, observing the fading light as it settled over Atlanta like a gentle blessing. Caroline Hughes approached quietly. "Everything is arranged, Ms. Whitmore. Mr. Turner will begin orientation tomorrow morning." Evelyn nodded, her expression thoughtful yet serene. "Good," she said softly. "His perspective will bring authenticity to our initiative." Caroline hesitated before adding, "It is remarkable how one small act can change so much." Evelyn's gaze drifted toward the horizon, where the last rays of sunlight shimmered across the glass towers. "Kindness has a way of restoring balance," she replied. "And sometimes it reminds us of who we were meant to be." As night settled over the city, the lights of Atlanta flickered to life, like constellations upon the earth. In a modest apartment, Malik Turner placed his neatly pressed clothes on a hanger and set his alarm for dawn, his heart filled with anticipation rather than uncertainty. Across town, in a quiet penthouse overlooking the skyline, Evelyn Whitmore reflected on the courage of a man who had given without expecting anything in return. Though their worlds remained vastly different, they were now connected by a shared purpose, one born not from wealth or influence, but from the simple, enduring power of compassion. And as the stars emerged above the sleeping city, a new chapter began to unfold, guided by hope, dignity, and the promise of tomorrow. The first light of dawn stretched gently across the Atlanta skyline, painting the horizon in hues of gold and pale rose as Malik Turner adjusted the collar of his freshly pressed shirt and stepped out of his modest apartment with quiet determination. The morning air carried a refreshing coolness, and the distant hum of the city awakening felt like a symphony of opportunity. Clutching his briefcase, he paused at the doorway to glance back at his mother, who stood smiling with pride. "Go show them who you are, baby," she said softly. Malik returned her smile. "I will, Mama." As he walked toward the waiting company car, the rising sun reflected in the windows of surrounding buildings, illuminating his path with the promise of new beginnings. The drive through downtown Atlanta felt different that morning, as if the city itself recognized his transformation. Glass towers shimmered against the clear blue sky, and pedestrians hurried along bustling sidewalks, their faces filled with purpose. When the car arrived at Whitmore Retail Headquarters, Malik stepped onto the polished pavement with steady confidence. The revolving glass doors welcomed him into a lobby of marble floors and cascading light, where the gentle fragrance of fresh lilies filled the air. "Good morning, Mr. Turner," the receptionist greeted warmly. "Welcome to your first day." Malik nodded with gratitude. "Thank you," he replied. Moments later, Caroline Hughes escorted him through sleek corridors lined with contemporary art and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the vibrant city below. "We are honored to have you here," she said with a reassuring smile. "Ms. Whitmore believes your perspective will shape this initiative in meaningful ways." Malik took a quiet breath, absorbing the significance of her words. "I hope to make a difference," he said earnestly. The orientation room buzzed softly with conversation as executives and coordinators gathered around a polished conference table. Malik's presence drew curious glances, yet his calm demeanor reflected quiet confidence. As the meeting began, Evelyn Whitmore entered with composed elegance, her presence commanding respect without a single word. "Good morning, everyone," she said. "Today marks the beginning of a new chapter for Whitmore Retail. We are launching the Community Renewal Initiative, dedicated to empowering underserved neighborhoods across the nation." Her gaze shifted toward Malik. "And I would like to introduce the man whose compassion inspired this mission, Mr. Malik Turner." A respectful silence filled the room before warm applause followed. Malik rose, humbled by the recognition. "Thank you, Ms. Whitmore," he said. "I am honored to be part of something that brings hope to those who need it most." Throughout the morning, Malik shared insights drawn from his own experiences, offering thoughtful perspectives on access to employment, affordable training, and community outreach. His words resonated with sincerity, and even the most seasoned executives listened attentively. By midday, the initial framework of the initiative began to take shape, guided by empathy and purpose. During a brief pause, Evelyn approached him by the window overlooking the city. "You have exceeded my expectations, Mr. Turner," she said warmly. Malik smiled modestly. "I am simply speaking from the heart." Evelyn nodded, her expression thoughtful. "That is precisely why your voice matters." As the afternoon sun bathed the skyline in radiant light, Malik felt a profound sense of belonging settle within him. For the first time, he was not merely surviving, he was contributing, shaping a future larger than himself. When the meeting concluded, he stepped outside onto the terrace, gazing at the endless horizon stretching beyond the city. The wind carried a gentle warmth, and he closed his eyes for a moment, offering silent gratitude. Across the glass towers, reflections of sunlight danced like symbols of possibility, reminding him how far he had come in such a short time. From a rainy night at a bus terminal to a seat at a table where decisions shaped lives, Malik understood that his journey was not merely about opportunity but about purpose. And as he opened his eyes to the shimmering skyline, he knew that the path ahead was illuminated not by wealth or power, but by the enduring strength of compassion and the quiet courage to care when it mattered most. The golden glow of late afternoon settled gently over Atlanta as Malik Turner stood near the floor-to-ceiling windows of Whitmore Retail Headquarters, watching the city pulse with life beneath him. Streams of traffic moved like ribbons of light along Peachtree Street, and the hum of distant conversations blended with the soft whir of elevators and the muted tapping of keyboards. His first day had unfolded with a sense of purpose he had never known, each meeting affirming that his voice carried weight in a room where decisions shaped futures. Yet as the sun dipped lower, casting amber reflections across the glass towers, Malik understood that his journey was only beginning. Inside a spacious conference room illuminated by natural light, he reviewed a series of proposals outlining outreach programs for underserved neighborhoods. Charts and reports lay neatly arranged before him, but it was not the data that held his attention. It was the photographs of struggling families, determined students, and hard-working parents striving for opportunity. Their stories echoed his own, and he studied each image with quiet resolve. Caroline Hughes approached with a reassuring smile. "You are settling in remarkably well, Mr. Turner," she said. Malik nodded appreciatively. "Thank you, Miss Hughes. I want to ensure these programs reach the people who need them most." She inclined her head. "That is precisely why Ms. Whitmore chose you." Just then, the door opened, and Evelyn Whitmore entered with her usual composed elegance. The room seemed to grow still as she approached the table, her gaze thoughtful yet encouraging. "Mr. Turner," she said warmly, "how are you finding your first day?" Malik stood respectfully. "It has been inspiring, Ms. Whitmore. I am beginning to see how this initiative can truly transform lives." Evelyn's expression softened. "Then I would like you to accompany me this evening," she said. "There is a community center on Auburn Avenue hosting a small gathering. It will serve as our first step toward launching the Community Renewal Initiative." Malik's eyes brightened with recognition. "Auburn Avenue is my neighborhood," he replied with quiet pride. Evelyn nodded. "All the more reason for you to be there." As dusk painted the sky in shades of violet and rose, they arrived at the modest brick building where warm light spilled from its windows. Children's laughter drifted through the air, mingling with the soulful notes of a piano echoing softly inside. The scent of freshly baked cornbread and brewed coffee welcomed them as volunteers and families gathered in hopeful anticipation. Malik stepped through the doorway, his heart swelling as he recognized familiar faces. Neighbors greeted him with astonished smiles, their eyes widening at the sight of him standing beside Evelyn Whitmore. "Malik?" an elderly man exclaimed. "Is that really you?" Malik laughed gently, shaking his hand. "It is good to see you, sir." Evelyn observed the exchanges with quiet admiration, witnessing the trust and respect Malik commanded within his community. As the evening unfolded, Malik spoke with families about their needs and aspirations, listening attentively and taking careful notes. His sincerity resonated deeply, bridging the gap between corporate vision and everyday reality. When Evelyn addressed the gathering, her voice carried warmth and conviction. "This initiative is not about charity," she said. "It is about partnership, dignity, and opportunity. And it was inspired by a man who reminded me that compassion can change the course of a life." She gestured toward Malik, and gentle applause filled the room. Malik stepped forward humbly, his voice steady. "We all deserve a chance to rise," he said. "And together, we can build a future where no one feels invisible." The crowd responded with heartfelt gratitude, their smiles illuminated by hope. Later that evening, as they stepped outside beneath a sky sprinkled with stars, Malik looked at Evelyn with sincere appreciation. "Thank you for believing in me," he said. She returned his gaze with quiet assurance. "You believed in humanity first, Mr. Turner. I simply followed your example." As they drove away, the streetlights shimmered along Auburn Avenue, casting a gentle glow upon the neighborhood that had shaped him. In that moment, Malik realized that his life had not only changed, it had found its purpose, guided by compassion and strengthened by the promise of a brighter tomorrow. The soft glow of streetlights lingered over Auburn Avenue as Malik Turner stepped out of the sleek black sedan, the cool evening breeze carrying the faint melody of distant jazz and the comforting hum of a neighborhood settling into the night. The community center behind him shimmered with warmth and laughter, its windows glowing like lanterns of hope, and for a moment he paused on the sidewalk, absorbing the quiet transformation unfolding within his life. Evelyn Whitmore joined him, her elegant silhouette outlined beneath the amber streetlight as she gazed thoughtfully at the familiar surroundings. "You belong here," she said gently. Malik nodded, his voice filled with sincerity. "This is where I learned what it means to care for others. Everything I am began on these streets." As the car pulled away, the city skyline rose ahead of them, glittering like a promise written in light, and the ride back to Whitmore Retail passed in reflective silence. The following morning dawned clear and radiant, the Georgia sun casting a golden hue across the glass towers of downtown Atlanta. Malik arrived early, his footsteps steady and purposeful as he entered the marble lobby. The receptionist greeted him with a warm smile, and he returned it with quiet confidence before making his way to the executive floor. The elevator doors opened to reveal Caroline Hughes waiting with a digital tablet in hand. "Good morning, Mr. Turner," she said pleasantly. "Ms. Whitmore would like you to join us in the conference room. There have been some developments regarding the Community Renewal Initiative." Malik inclined his head. "Of course." Inside the spacious boardroom, floor-to-ceiling windows framed a panoramic view of the city, while a long mahogany table gleamed beneath suspended lights. Several senior executives were already seated, their expressions attentive yet measured. Evelyn Whitmore stood at the head of the table, her presence composed and commanding. "Good morning, everyone," she began. "Last night's visit confirmed the importance of our mission. Today, we will finalize the proposal to expand our outreach to 5 major cities within the next year." She gestured toward Malik. "Mr. Turner will provide insight drawn from his experience within the communities we aim to serve." Malik felt every gaze turned toward him, but instead of hesitation, he felt clarity. Rising from his seat, he spoke with calm conviction. "Opportunity changes everything," he said. "But it must be accessible. If we establish job training centers, partner with local schools, and provide mentorship programs, we can empower individuals to build sustainable futures for themselves and their families." The room grew silent as his words resonated with authenticity. One executive leaned forward impressed. "Your perspective adds remarkable depth, Mr. Turner." Evelyn nodded with approval. "That is precisely why he is here." As the meeting progressed, projections and charts illuminated the screen, outlining a plan that blended corporate resources with human compassion. The initiative was approved unanimously, and a quiet ripple of applause followed. Malik felt a surge of gratitude, knowing that his voice had contributed to something far greater than himself. After the meeting, he stepped into the corridor overlooking the city, sunlight pouring through the windows in brilliant streams. Evelyn approached, her expression thoughtful yet warm. "You handled yourself with grace," she said. Malik smiled modestly. "I spoke from the heart." She regarded him with quiet admiration. And that is what makes your leadership invaluable. Later that afternoon, Caroline hurried toward them, her face bright with excitement. Ms. Whitmore, Mr. Turner, the media has taken notice. News outlets are already reporting on the Community Renewal Initiative. The response has been overwhelmingly positive. Evelyn exchanged a glance with Malik. Then our work has truly begun, she said. As they stood together before the expansive windows, the Atlanta skyline shimmered beneath the afternoon sun, each reflection a testament to progress and possibility. Malik watched the city pulse with life, his heart steady with purpose, realizing that the kindness he once offered beneath flickering terminal lights had grown into a movement capable of transforming countless lives. And as the golden light bathed the glass towers in brilliance, he understood that his journey was no longer defined by hardship, but by hope, dignity, and the enduring power of compassion. Morning light poured through the towering glass walls of Whitmore Retail headquarters, casting radiant beams across the polished marble floors as Atlanta awakened beneath a sky of brilliant blue. The city shimmered with possibility, its skyline reflecting ambition and hope, and Malik Turner stood near the expansive windows of the executive floor, absorbing the magnitude of the moment before him. The events of the past days felt almost surreal, yet the steady rhythm of his heartbeat reminded him that this was no dream. He had earned his place through compassion, integrity, and courage. Inside the main conference hall, preparations were underway for a highly anticipated press announcement. Soft murmurs of conversation drifted through the room as journalists arranged their equipment, flashes of cameras illuminating the elegant space in brief bursts of light. A sleek podium bearing the Whitmore Retail emblem stood at the center, symbolizing both authority and purpose. Caroline Hughes approached Malik with a reassuring smile. "Are you ready, Mr. Turner?" she asked gently. Malik nodded, adjusting his tie with quiet confidence. "I am ready," he replied. "Not for recognition, but for what this initiative can accomplish." Caroline inclined her head with admiration. "Your sincerity is precisely what makes this moment meaningful." Moments later, Evelyn Whitmore entered the hall, her presence composed and graceful, commanding attention without a single word. Dressed in an elegant ivory suit, she radiated quiet authority and warmth. As she reached Malik's side, she offered him an encouraging glance. "Today is not about me," she said softly. "It is about the power of a single act of kindness, and the change it can inspire." Malik met her gaze with gratitude. "Thank you for trusting me, Ms. Whitmore." She smiled gently. "You gave me a reason to believe again. Now let the world hear your story." As the announcement began, the room fell into respectful silence. Evelyn stepped forward to the podium, her voice calm and resolute. "Good morning," she began. "Whitmore Retail is proud to introduce the Community Renewal Initiative, a nationwide effort dedicated to empowering underserved communities through education, employment opportunities, and sustainable support." She paused, allowing her words to resonate. "This initiative was inspired by an extraordinary individual whose compassion reminded me that true success is measured not by wealth, but by humanity." She turned toward Malik and gestured for him to join her. Applause filled the room as Malik approached the podium, the sound echoing like a wave of encouragement. Taking a steady breath, he looked out at the audience, the bright lights reflecting in his eyes. "My name is Malik Turner," he began, his voice clear and sincere. "I stand here not as a symbol of success, but as proof that kindness matters. A simple gesture, offered without expectation, can transform lives in ways we cannot foresee. Opportunity changes everything, but dignity gives opportunity its meaning." The audience listened intently, moved by the authenticity of his words. He continued, "Every community deserves hope, and every individual deserves to be seen. Together, we can build a future where compassion guides progress, and no one is left behind." The room erupted into applause, cameras flashing as journalists captured the moment. Across the nation, news outlets broadcast the announcement, sharing the story of a man whose selfless act had ignited a movement of change. After the event concluded, Malik stepped onto the rooftop terrace overlooking the vibrant city. The midday sun bathed Atlanta in golden light, and a gentle breeze carried the distant sounds of traffic and laughter from the streets below. Evelyn joined him, her expression thoughtful yet proud. "You spoke beautifully," she said. Malik smiled modestly. "I spoke from the heart." She nodded. "And that is why your voice will reach so many." He gazed at the skyline, reflecting on the journey that had brought him there. "All I did was share what my mother taught me," he said quietly. "To treat every person with dignity." Evelyn's eyes softened. "And in doing so, you changed more than your own life. You reminded us all of what truly matters." As the sun shimmered across the glass towers and the city buzzed with renewed optimism, Malik felt a profound sense of purpose settle within him. The path ahead stretched wide and bright, illuminated by compassion and guided by hope, and he understood that this was only the beginning of a legacy born from a single act of kindness. The days following the nationwide announcement unfolded like a quiet sunrise over Atlanta, each morning bringing renewed purpose and momentum to Whitmore retail headquarters as the Community Renewal Initiative began to take shape across the country. Sunlight streamed through the expansive glass walls of the executive floor, illuminating bustling workstations where teams collaborated with determination, their voices blending into a harmonious rhythm of progress. Malik Turner stood at the center of it all, reviewing outreach proposals and speaking with coordinators from cities such as Chicago, Detroit, and Baltimore, ensuring that each program reflected genuine understanding rather than distant assumption. His presence carried authenticity, and every word he spoke resonated with sincerity born from lived experience. Caroline Hughes approached with a warm smile, placing a folder neatly on his desk. "The Pilot Training Center on Auburn Avenue is ready for its grand opening next week," she said. Malik's eyes brightened as he read the details. "That neighborhood raised me," he replied with quiet pride. "Seeing it thrive means everything." Caroline nodded. "It is already making headlines. Applications are pouring in from families eager for opportunity." Across the office, Evelyn Whitmore observed the exchange from her doorway, her expression reflecting both admiration and quiet satisfaction. She stepped forward gracefully. "Mr. Turner, your leadership has transformed vision into reality," she said. Malik rose respectfully. "I am simply honoring the chance you gave me, Ms. Whitmore." Evelyn smiled gently. "You earned that chance the moment you chose kindness without expectation." As the week progressed, preparations for the Auburn Avenue opening intensified. On the morning of the ceremony, the sky stretched clear and radiant, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of blooming magnolias through the historic district. The newly renovated training center stood proudly among brick storefronts and tree-lined sidewalks, its entrance adorned with a ribbon of deep blue satin. Families gathered with hopeful expressions, their anticipation reflected in the sparkle of their eyes. Malik arrived early, dressed in a tailored navy suit, pausing to take in the familiar surroundings of his childhood. Memories stirred within him, reminding him of humble beginnings and dreams once whispered in quiet rooms. His mother stood beside him, her hand resting gently on his arm. "Look at what you have accomplished, baby," she said softly. Malik smiled, emotion warming his voice. "We accomplished this together, Mama." Evelyn Whitmore soon joined them, her presence elegant yet approachable as she greeted community leaders and residents with genuine warmth. When the ceremony began, the crowd fell silent beneath the golden glow of the morning sun. Evelyn stepped forward first, her voice carrying calm conviction. "Today is not merely the opening of a building," she said. "It is the opening of doors that lead to opportunity, dignity, and hope." She then turned to Malik, inviting him to address the gathering. As he approached the podium, applause rippled through the crowd like a wave of encouragement. Malik looked out at the faces before him, many familiar, others filled with expectation. Taking a steady breath, he spoke with heartfelt sincerity. "This center stands as proof that compassion can build bridges where obstacles once stood," he said. "No dream is too distant when opportunity is within reach. If my journey has taught me anything, it is that a single act of kindness can create ripples that change countless lives." The crowd responded with resounding applause, their gratitude echoing beneath the clear blue sky. Children waved small banners, and parents exchanged hopeful smiles as the ribbon was ceremoniously cut, marking the beginning of a new chapter for the community. Later that afternoon, as sunlight danced across Auburn Avenue, Malik walked through the training center's bright halls, watching students enroll in courses that promised a brighter future. Evelyn joined him quietly. "You have turned inspiration into impact," she said. Malik smiled, his gaze filled with purpose. "And we are only just beginning." As they stood side by side, the vibrant energy of the center resonated around them, a testament to the power of empathy and determination. Outside, the Atlanta skyline shimmered beneath the afternoon sun, reflecting a future defined not by circumstance, but by hope, dignity, and the enduring strength of compassion. The soft glow of twilight settled over Auburn Avenue as the final guests departed from the newly opened training center, their voices fading into the gentle hum of the evening. Street lights flickered to life one by one, casting warm pools of amber light across the historic sidewalks, and the glass doors of the center reflected the fading colors of the Georgia sky. Inside, the building remained alive with quiet purpose, its halls illuminated by modern lighting and filled with the promise of brighter tomorrows. Malik Turner walked slowly through the spacious corridors, his footsteps echoing softly against polished floors as he observed classrooms equipped with new computers, training stations, and rows of neatly arranged desks awaiting eager students. The air carried the faint scent of fresh paint and polished wood, a symbol of renewal and possibility. He paused near a window overlooking the street where he had once walked as a young man with uncertain dreams, his reflection staring back at him as if bridging the distance between past and present. A gentle voice interrupted his thoughts. "You have built something extraordinary," Evelyn Whitmore said as she approached, her elegant silhouette framed by the soft glow of the overhead lights. Malik turned, offering a respectful smile. "We built it together," he replied. "This center belongs to the community." Evelyn nodded, her eyes reflecting quiet pride. "And it will change lives for generations to come." They stood side by side, gazing through the glass as a young mother and her son lingered outside, pointing at the sign with hopeful anticipation. Malik watched them with a warmth that settled deep within his heart. "When I was a child," he said softly, "opportunity always felt just out of reach. Today, it finally feels possible for others." Evelyn regarded him thoughtfully. "You have given people more than opportunity," she said. "You have given them belief." Her words lingered in the air, filled with sincerity. As night deepened, they walked through the final rooms, ensuring every detail was in place. Volunteers waved goodnight, their faces glowing with optimism, and the building slowly fell silent, resting in anticipation of the new day ahead. Outside, the city of Atlanta shimmered beneath a canopy of stars, its skyline illuminated like a constellation of dreams. Later that evening, Malik returned home, greeted by the comforting glow of a lamp and the familiar warmth of his mother's embrace. She sat at the kitchen table, her glasses perched gently on her nose as she reviewed a brochure from the training center. "It is beautiful," she said, her voice trembling with pride. Malik smiled as he poured 2 cups of tea. "It is more than a building, Mama. It is a promise." She reached for his hand, her touch gentle yet steady. "Your kindness has carried you farther than you ever imagined," she said softly. "And it will carry others with you." Malik nodded, emotion filling his voice. "Everything I have achieved began with what you taught me." Across the city, in her penthouse overlooking the glittering skyline, Evelyn Whitmore stood by the window, reflecting on the journey that had brought their paths together. The memory of a rainy night at a bus terminal remained vivid in her mind, a reminder that the most profound transformations often begin with the simplest gestures. She picked up a framed photograph of the newly opened center, her expression serene. "Compassion," she whispered quietly, "is the truest measure of success." The following morning, sunlight bathed Auburn Avenue in a radiant glow as the doors of the training center opened to welcome its first students. Malik arrived early, greeting each individual with warmth and encouragement, his presence inspiring confidence and hope. Laughter and conversation filled the classrooms as dreams began to take shape within those walls. Evelyn soon joined him, observing with quiet satisfaction as lives were set on a path toward stability and achievement. Standing together in the bright lobby, they watched as a young student signed her enrollment form with trembling excitement. "This is only the beginning," Malik said. Evelyn smiled gently. "Yes," she replied. "And it all began with a single act of kindness." As the morning light poured through the windows, illuminating hopeful faces and open doors, the future unfolded before them, bright, boundless, and guided by dignity, compassion, and the enduring power of humanity. The gentle glow of morning sunlight spilled across Auburn Avenue as Malik Turner stood outside the Community Renewal Training Center, watching the city awaken with renewed promise. The glass facade reflected the golden hues of dawn, illuminating the engraved plaque beside the entrance that bore the words "Opportunity begins here." A soft breeze carried the scent of blooming magnolias through the air, mingling with the distant sounds of traffic and laughter, and Malik felt a quiet sense of gratitude settle within his heart. Only weeks earlier, he had stood beneath flickering terminal lights on a rainy night, offering his last meal to a stranger. Now he stood before a doorway that symbolized hope for countless others. Students began to arrive, their faces filled with anticipation as they stepped into the building, each carrying dreams shaped by determination and possibility. Malik greeted them warmly, offering encouragement and guidance, his voice steady and reassuring. Among them was a young man clutching a worn notebook. "Sir," he said nervously, "do you really believe this program can change my life?" Malik smiled gently. "I do," he replied. "Because it changed mine." Inside the center, sunlight streamed through wide windows, illuminating classrooms filled with state-of-the-art equipment and eager learners. The air buzzed with optimism as instructors welcomed their first cohorts, and the soft tapping of keyboards echoed like a symphony of progress. Caroline Hughes walked beside Malik, reviewing enrollment numbers on her tablet. "Applications have exceeded expectations," she said with satisfaction. "We are already planning expansions in other cities." Malik nodded thoughtfully. "That means more doors will open for those who need them most." Across the room, Evelyn Whitmore observed quietly, her expression reflecting pride and fulfillment. She approached Malik with graceful composure. "You have brought this vision to life," she said warmly. Malik shook his head modestly. "It began with your belief in me." Evelyn's eyes softened. "No, Mr. Turner. It began with your belief in kindness." Her words lingered in the air as a group of students gathered nearby, listening with admiration. Later that afternoon, the three of them stood before a large monitor displaying national news coverage of the initiative. Headlines praised the program as a model of corporate compassion and social responsibility. Images of the Auburn Avenue Center flashed across the screen, accompanied by stories of hope and opportunity. Malik watched quietly, humbled by the impact of a single decision made from the heart. "I never imagined my life would lead here," he said softly. Evelyn smiled. "Sometimes destiny arrives disguised as a simple choice." As evening descended upon Atlanta, the skyline shimmered beneath a canvas of twilight, and the training center glowed like a beacon of possibility. Malik walked along the quiet sidewalk, pausing beneath the streetlight where children laughed and neighbors exchanged greetings. His mother joined him, her eyes filled with pride. "You have turned compassion into a legacy," she said gently. Malik took her hand, his voice filled with emotion. "Everything I am began with what you taught me." She smiled warmly. "And everything you give will continue to grow." Across the street, the illuminated sign of the training center cast a gentle glow, symbolizing hope that would endure for generations. Later that night, Malik returned to the bus terminal where his journey had begun. The lights hummed softly overhead, and the polished floor reflected the quiet stillness of the empty hall. He stood near the familiar bench, remembering the rainy evening that had changed his life. A young woman sat nearby, her shoulders hunched and her expression uncertain. Malik approached her with a gentle smile and offered a warm cup of coffee. "Here you go," he said kindly. "No one should feel alone." She looked up in surprise, gratitude shining in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. Malik nodded, his heart filled with quiet understanding. As he stepped back into the night, the city lights shimmered like stars upon the earth, reminding him that compassion had the power to transform even the darkest moments. High above the skyline, Evelyn Whitmore gazed out from her penthouse window, reflecting on the journey they had shared. In her hand rested a framed photograph of the Auburn Avenue Center, a testament to the enduring strength of kindness. She smiled softly, whispering to herself, "True wealth lies not in what we possess but in what we give." Beneath the vast expanse of the Georgia sky, Malik Turner walked forward with steady confidence, his path illuminated by dignity, hope, and purpose. The ripple of a single act of kindness had grown into a movement of change, proving that when compassion leads the way, even the smallest gesture can shape a brighter future for generations to come.